Why do some eyes stop us for a second, even before we know a name, a story, or the ancient history hidden behind them? A pair of blue eyes can feel cold, gentle, distant, or impossible, not because they are stronger, but because color changes a face. Today, we turn eye color into beauty, identity, ancestry, mystery, even personality, while forgetting the story began long before mirrors existed. But blue eyes are not blue because blue paint sits inside them. Their color comes from light, pigment, and a strange genetic switch. To understand that switch, we have to leave phones, portraits, and modern labels, then walk backward into a world without written names. Go back thousands of years to a cold prehistoric camp where faces appeared and disappeared in firelight, long before anyone knew DNA existed. A hunter watches the forest edge, a forager sorts roots beside the flames, and every glance carries information the whole group may need. If one person suddenly stares into the trees, everyone follows, because a gaze can become warning before a voice makes sound. Before humans read letters, they read eyes, fear, anger, trust, hunger, attention, and the tiny movements that kept families alive. That is why eye color matters in our imagination. It appears in the one place humans were already trained to watch. But the first myth must break here. Blue eyes do not mean better, purer, stronger, or more evolved than any other eyes. They are a biological variation, a visible accident of pigment and light, resting inside the most emotionally powerful part of the face. The machinery begins with melanin, the pigment that helps decide whether an iris looks dark brown, pale blue, green, gray, or hazel. More melanin usually means brown eyes. Less melanin lets light scatter differently, creating the blue appearance that feels almost unreal. So, before we search for the first blue-eyed ancestor, we must understand the strange trick that makes an eye look blue. Most human eye color begins in the iris, a small ring of tissue that quietly controls how much light and pigment we notice. Think of the iris like a tiny curtain inside the face, catching light, absorbing some of it, and sending some back. When the iris has more melanin, it usually absorbs more light, and the eye appears brown, dark, warm, or almost black. But when the front of the iris has very little melanin, light behaves differently, and the eye can begin to look blue. That means blue eyes are not painted blue inside. Their color is a visual effect created by structure, light, and low pigment. Think of the sky. It is not filled with blue paint, yet sunlight scattering through air makes it look blue above us. Blue eyes work through a similar visual trick, where short blue wavelengths scatter back, while darker pigment does not cover the effect. That is why the same pale eyes can shift with weather, firelight, shadow, and morning sky. Sometimes gray, sometimes icy, sometimes soft. To prehistoric people, none of this had scientific names. They did not say melanin, scattering, wavelength, or genetics around the fire. They only saw a face that looked different. And in a small group, difference could become memory, nickname, curiosity, or attraction. A difference does not always mean survival advantage. Sometimes a trait survives because people move, groups shrink, and chance becomes history. A rare eye color might spread because one family had many children, one band crossed a valley, or one population grew after hardship. Evolution is not a ladder toward better humans. It is a messy map of mutation, migration, isolation, attraction, survival, and luck. Blue eyes may be one of those strange traits where biology, chance, and human attention all meet in the same tiny place. And to find where that tiny place begins, we have to look closer at a genetic switch near the pigment system. Eye color is influenced by many genes, so the blue eye story is not a simple fairy tale about one tiny magic button. But one important region appears again and again in this mystery, near two names scientists often mention: OCA2 and HERC2. OCA2 helps control pigment production, while a nearby HERC2 region can affect how strongly that pigment system turns on. Imagine the pigment system as a campfire, and this genetic region like a dimmer switch, changing how brightly the flame burns. When that iris pigment is turned lower, the eye may look blue, without meaning the whole body has lost its pigment. A famous idea suggests many blue-eyed people may share an ancient mutation in this regulatory region carried forward through generations. But careful science says may, suggests, and likely. It does not give us a perfect legend with one named ancestor. We do not know that person's face, name, language, family, fear, favorite food, or what the group whispered about them. Still, we can imagine a small prehistoric group gathering close, because every newborn was fragile and survival was never guaranteed. Hands warm the fire, roots are placed nearby, and the whole camp quietly protects one tiny life from cold, hunger, and darkness. At first, nobody knows what those eyes will become. Then, slowly, they remain unusually light as the seasons pass. Around the fire, people notice not a mutation, not a gene, not a scientific miracle, but simply a gaze that looks different. The mutation is not a legend yet. It is only a human presence, breathing near smoke, looking back from the firelight. Yet a tiny switch can travel farther than any one person walks, moving through children, camps, valleys, migrations, and forgotten generations. But did that color help people survive? Or did it spread through chance, attraction, and the strange history of small groups? So, did blue eyes help ancient humans survive? The honest answer is not simple, and that is what makes the story better. It is tempting to imagine every trait has one clear purpose, like teeth for biting, legs for running, or fire for warmth. But eye color is harder. Lighter eyes may have had tiny effects in certain light, yet certainty disappears quickly in deep time. Maybe lighter eyes spread partly through attraction, because unusual features can become memorable when every face in a small band is known. Maybe it spread through bottlenecks, migrations, and chance, when small groups carried rare variants into new valleys and larger descendants. The danger is turning uncertainty into mythology. A good prehistoric story does not need fake certainty. The real mystery is stronger. Imagine ancient Europe after the Ice Age. Forests returning, rivers shifting, animal herds moving, and human bands meeting or separating again. In one valley, pale eyes might be almost unknown. In another, they might become common because one small group carried the variant. If that group grew, moved, and had children, the color moved too. Not like magic, but like family memory. Not because the eye was stronger, but because humans carry history in bodies, faces, skin, hair, bones, and small reflections. Ancient DNA has made this past stranger, showing that prehistoric faces were not simple costume versions of people alive today. One famous Mesolithic genome from Spain was interpreted as likely blue-eyed, while carrying pigmentation clues that surprised many modern expectations. Can verify. That matters because blue eyes do not automatically mean pale skin, modern categories, or the stereotypes people often project backward. Ancient people were mosaics of ancestry, adaptation, migration, and chance. Their faces did not fit neatly into our modern boxes. So imagine real humans instead. Cold hands, smoke in their hair, fire on their faces, and one pair of eyes catching sky-colored light. But even if blue eyes began as pigment and light, humans cared because we are built to search faces for meaning. A wolf watches movement, but a human watches intention. Anger, trust, fear, interest, warning, and the question, "Are you with me?" The eyes became a screen where the brain searched for clues, and unusual eyes became even harder for people to ignore. In a small band, everyone knew every face, so one rare feature could become identity, memory, nickname, and maybe attraction. Maybe someone found that pale gaze striking. Maybe someone did not. Deep prehistory keeps desire mostly hidden from us. Bones do not preserve compliments. DNA does not record who stared too long across the fire or who remembered a face forever. Now return to the modern world. A mirror, a phone screen, a photograph, and a face that still pulls attention first. We live under artificial light, but the ancient brain still reads eyes for emotion, danger, honesty, belonging, and hidden intention. That is why blue eyes can still collect stories: beauty, coldness, innocence, danger, ancestry, mystery, and whatever we project onto them. But we must say this clearly. Blue eyes are not better humans, cleaner blood, higher evolution, or a secret ancient destiny. They are pigment, light, genes, migration, chance, and attention, woven into one small reflection that humans learned to notice. Human variation is not a ladder. It is a map, and every face is a small archive of deep time. Picture the camp one last time. Low fire, cold night, sparks rising, and 3 humans sitting close against the dark. For 1 second, fire catches a pale eye, and a future mystery begins without words, science, mirrors, or any idea of fame. Maybe blue eyes still feel mysterious because they show how a tiny change can travel through enormous time and make another human look twice.